Haunted dolls, whispers of fear. The very mention of them sends shivers down the spine. These are not just toys, they are the stuff of nightmares. Dolls. They seem so innocent, don't they? With their delicate features and charming attire, they appear to be nothing more than harmless playthings. But looks can be deceiving. But some dolls hold a dark secret. Whispers tell of dolls possessed by spirits, their eyes watching, their smiles hiding evil. These dolls are said to be conduits for malevolent entities, their porcelain faces masking a sinister presence. These haunted dolls bring fear and terror to those who dare to own them. They are not mere objects, they are harbingers of dread, bringing with them an aura of unease that permeates the very air around them. Stories speak of dolls moving on their own, their heads turning, their limbs twitching. Imagine waking up in the dead of night to find a doll that was once sitting on a shelf now standing at the foot of your bed, its eyes fixed on you. Some say they whisper in the night, their voices filled with sadness and anger. These whispers are not just figments of imagination. They are the cries of tormented souls trapped within these inanimate forms. These dolls are not toys. They are vessels of something evil, something we cannot understand. They carry with them a malevolence that defies explanation, a darkness that seeps into the lives of those who come into contact with them. Think twice before you pick up that old doll in the antique shop. It may look like a charming relic of the past, but it could be a Pandora's box of horrors waiting to be unleashed. You might be inviting something sinister into your life, something you can never get rid of. Once these dolls latch onto you, they become a part of your existence, a constant reminder of the darkness that lurks just beneath the surface of the ordinary. The old Victorian house stood on a hill overlooking the town. Its silhouette was a dark, looming presence against the twilight sky, casting long shadows that seemed to stretch endlessly. It was a place of shadows and secrets, its windows like empty eyes staring out into the void. The townsfolk whispered about the house, saying it held memories of sorrow and despair. The paint peeled, revealing the bare wood beneath, and the porch creaked under the weight of dead leaves that had gathered over the years. Each step on the porch seemed to echo the footsteps of those who had long since left. Inside, the air was cold and still, as if time itself had stopped. The silence was almost deafening, broken only by the occasional creak of the old wooden beams. Dust covered the furniture, thick layers that spoke of years of neglect. Cobwebs hung from the chandeliers like ghostly decorations, swaying gently in the draught. The house had been empty for years, left to decay after a terrible tragedy. The walls seemed to whisper stories of the past, of lives once lived and now forgotten. This was the perfect setting for a prank. The eerie atmosphere and the house's dark history made it an ideal location to play on people's fears. A prank that would make everyone believe in haunted dolls. The idea was to place the doll in the most unsettling spots, making it seem as if it moved on its own. The mere thought of it sent shivers down the spine, adding to the house's already chilling reputation. Max, Sarah and Ben loved a good scare. They were always on the lookout for the next big thrill, the next heart-pounding adventure that would leave their friends talking for weeks. This year they wanted to outdo themselves. They'd pulled off some pretty impressive pranks in the past, but this time they were aiming for legendary status. They had found the perfect spot, the abandoned Victorian house on the edge of town. It was rumoured to be haunted, and its eerie appearance only added to its mystique. And they had the perfect prop, a creepy old doll from the local flea market. Its cracked porcelain face and lifeless eyes were enough to send shivers down anyone's spine. Max, the brains of the operation, came up with a plan. He was always the mastermind behind their pranks, and this time was no different. They would invite their friends for a movie night at the house. The idea was simple but effective. Lure them in with the promise of a fun night, and then scare them out of their wits. Little did their friends know, the real show was about to begin. The movie was just a cover for the main event. Sarah would plant the doll in a dark corner of the house, where it would be sure to catch someone's eye. Meanwhile, Ben would be in charge of creating spooky noises using his sound effects app. He had a knack for making even the most mundane sounds seem terrifying. This was going to be epic, or so they thought. They could already imagine the screams, the laughter, and the stories that would be told for years to come. But as with all great plans, there was always the unexpected. And that night, the unexpected was waiting for them in the shadows of the old house. As they set everything up, the excitement was palpable. They could hardly contain their anticipation. The stage was set, and all that was left was to wait for their friends to arrive. When the moment finally came, it was everything they had hoped for and more. The screams echoed through the halls, and the looks of terror on their friends' faces were priceless. It was a prank for the ages, one that would be remembered long after the night was over. As the sun began to set, they snuck into the house. They placed the doll on a rocking chair in the living room. Its porcelain face seemed to glow in the fading light. Suddenly, the wind slammed a door shut. The sound echoed through the empty house. Sarah shivered. Was that just the wind, or something else? They ignored the uneasy feeling and finished setting up. They hid speakers and microphones, ready to capture every scream. They were ready for their friends. Their friends arrived, laughing and joking. They didn't notice the eerie silence of the house. They didn't see the shadows lengthening in the corners. Not yet. Max started the movie, a classic horror flick. The tension built with each scene. Sarah and Ben exchanged nervous glances. This was going even better than planned. Then it began. A soft creaking sound. The rocking chair in the corner moved, slowly at first, then faster. The friends fell silent, their eyes wide with fear. "What was that?" someone whispered. Max pretended to be surprised, but inside he was thrilled. The prank was working perfectly. Suddenly the lights flickered and died. The room plunged into darkness. Screams filled the air as the friends scrambled for the door, but the door wouldn't open. It was jammed. They were trapped. Panic surged through the room. They rattled the doorknob, but it wouldn't budge. Then a blood-curdling scream pierced the darkness. Sarah had stumbled upon the doll. It was no longer on the rocking chair. It was lying on the floor, its glassy eyes staring up at her. And its mouth was moving. It was whispering. "Let us out!" Ben yelled, banging on the door. But it was no use. They were trapped with something sinister, something that was no longer a prank. The whispering grew louder, turning into a low growl. The air grew cold, and a foul smell filled the room. The doll was alive, and it was angry. Suddenly, the front door flew open. Standing in the doorway was Max's older brother, a smirk on his face. He had been watching the whole time, enjoying their terror. "You should have seen your faces," he laughed. But his laughter died in his throat. The doll in the corner was gone. And as he turned to leave, he felt a sharp pain in his ankle. Something had tripped him. He looked down. The doll was gone. But its evil grin remained, burned into his mind forever.